Alright, this is a short video on the topic of how to line up with a runway using GPS. Alright, so we're familiar with, we're going to start. My aircraft is on pause right now. I'm in a TBM 930. And I am making an approach to Groton Airport. And I started, if you look up at the map up here in the left corner, upper left corner, I started northwest of the Groton Airport, and my track would have me run southeast, and actually runway 150 would have been a natural, would have been very close to this heading. But let's say for whatever reason, maybe the tower, maybe the active runway today, perhaps winds are out of the southwest. So when we land, we want to land heading into the wind. So the active runway for landing right now, Groton is a controlled airport. It does have a tower. The tower is giving me clearance to land on runway 23 VFR. Well, if I follow my track my GPS track from the starting point to Groton, in other words, if I keep my magenta line centered and follow that track in, it'll take me straight to the airport, but I won't be lined up to approach runway 23, which is I'll be coming in from the northeast headed southwest. So I'll be headed this way, like that. So the question is there some way electronically, while I have this GPS track still on display, that I can find out when I intersect a 230 bearing to runway 23, right? I mean, right before that is when I want to make my turn to the right, to the southwest, and it should bring me right in to runway 23. Pretty close enough, right? It's not an instrument approach, but it'll help, when I'm a little farther out, it'll help make sure I'm lined up, so it'll make my job easier. Well, it turns out there is a way to do that, so I'm gonna show you right now. If you look at your PFD, let me fix something really quick here though. If you look at your PFD, you have your CDI, or course direction, course deviation indicator, and your compass all piled into one thing here. And you can see that right now I am well left of our track, even though I'm pretty close to the track course. I'm well left of the track. You can tell that here. So actually, I think each one of these little circles represents 2 miles. So I am definitely left of track, maybe 4 miles. I would have to look up what those circles mean, but I know they do have a specific distance associated with them. So my goal is I'm going to keep heading to the southeast until I reach the bearing. I want a needle to point in the bearing of the airport. I don't want to know where I stand with respect to this track. I want a pointer that's going to point right at the airport using GPS. Now, I could use a VOR if I wanted, but you know what? I've got GPS. I've already got this thing dialed in as my destination, so why not use GPS? So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. What we're going to do is we're going to come down here and click on PFD settings, and then you'll notice these 2 little settings here. You have bearing 1 and bearing 2, and what those are is notice the blue color, it's light blue. Those are extra pointers, and you can select what you want the pointers to go to. So I could have bearing 1 going to nav 1 and bearing 2 going to GPS. All right. or I could have bearing 2 going to ADF, or what have you, right? Now there's no arrow now because there's no ADF signal. Okay, so that's what those do. I'm going to turn bearing 2 off. Now bearing 1, I don't want to use nav 1. That's the radio nav 1. In other words, if I had a VOR tuned into nav 1 or an ILS, I could leave it on nav 1. I could click this, cycle through until I get to nav 1, and it would give me the bearing to that VOR station. But I don't want that. I want the bearing to my GPS destination. So I'm going to keep cycling bearing 1 through until it says GPS. Now you'll notice right here it says 8.5 miles, KGON, GPS. See this little arrow? And if you look now on the CDI, there's a light blue. Let me zoom in on that. Okay. So bearing 1, I've selected GPS. Now there's a light blue arrow pointing to the south, which is pretty close to where Groton is for me. So unlike the magenta arrow, which is our track line, has a from and a to, this arrow is just pointing directly at the Groton Airport. Therefore, if I continue down on my course here, paralleling my track, until this thing reads, it's been moving to the right, I have to follow it around till it's reading 230. When it gets to 23, it's time for me to turn. I'll probably do it a little sooner than that, but it'll be time for me to turn and to course 23 and follow this line straight in. Follow course 23 right into the runway. So let's try that. Okay, so I'm gonna back out now, and I'm gonna take my pause off. I'm descending with the autopilot right now, so we're coming down, and I think I'm gonna select 1,000 feet. There. So it'll keep descending till we reach 1,000 feet. Let me pick that rate up just a little bit. Now, notice I'm watching my little light blue arrow here on the CDI. And you see how it's moving to the right rather quickly now. And so once it gets to about 220, I'll probably start my turn in towards the airport. I don't want to shoot past it. And I know I'm 5.7 miles off my track. Wow. And there's an actual bearing to the airport right here too. Huh. Might not even have to use the needle. Actually, if you looked at that, that would tell you too the bearing. That's giving me a bearing to the airport right there. Let's see how we're doing here. Okay, I'm descending quickly here, and I'm going to get ready to all right, it's time to turn. And I'm going to bring the airplane around to course 230. Pull back on my throttle, and I should be. There's the runway right there. I shot past it a little bit, but landing gear down. First notch of flaps. I mean, second notch of flaps. I'm high. I know that. I can see that.
Tower Navigator Flight 0162 was 2 miles northeast with Oscar to land. Tower Flight 0162 Tower. Make straight at runway 23.
We're doing good. We're 95 knots, a little bit high, but we're doing all right.
Make straight at runway 23 Tower 162.
I'm going to give it a little more throttle now. I don't want to drop my airspeed too low here. A little more throttle. Okay. And we're down.
Delta 162, you are not cleared to land.
Oh, be
Clear the
quiet.
runway.
Okay, so there we have it. That ends the lesson, so you get the idea. Now you can use this, but I just noticed that they have this display right here too.
Delta 162, you are not cleared to land.
That also,
Clear the runway.
oh, be quiet. That also shows you a bearing to the airport, which would do the same thing for you actually. If you know which runway you want, you just wait until you intersect that bearing and then you turn in towards the airport. That's it. Thank you very much.